Well, welcome once again. This is Mick, the Doctor of Digital, the Doctor of Digital podcast. And what we have today is an exciting program, an exciting show. So I can't wait to get started. Got a special guest today. I've been looking to get this gentleman on for quite some time. And this is something that I hope will be of as interest to you as it has been to me, because most leadership books teach techniques. Eugene Kuhn is building Doctrine. He argues that leadership is no longer about position, permission, or institutional validation. It's about becoming the kind of person who can remain clear, capable, calm, and incorruptible when the systems around you begin to fracture. I'm Mick, the Doctor of Digital, and this episode is about leadership, sovereignty, discipline, and what it means to build character strong enough to withstand pressure in an age defined by disruption, manipulation, and institutional uncertainty. At one point, Stephen explains why the greatest threat to modern leaders is not technological disruption, political instability, or economic volatility, but the quest is internal. Companies that have long lost their internal collapse, that becomes visible. With that, I want to welcome Stephen to the program. Good to see you once again, Stephen. How are you today?
Thank you, Mick. Appreciate it. I'm doing good.
Outstanding. Before the doctrine, before the books, before the global business work that you've done all over the world, I want to start earlier. You spent decades moving through military service, international business, high stakes advisory work, and now building what you call citizen servant leadership. When did you first realize that leadership was not primarily about authority, but of becoming structurally incapable of compromise?
I love it. I think that I've always sort of realized it when little things happen, but you don't consciously, you're not aware of it because you're looking past it because you're looking at a goal, right? So if you have a goal of getting promoted and some little things aren't right, or maybe you had to close an eye or two or whatever every once in a while, you sort of let it go because it's on the way to your goal, and that's what we're taught, right? So you got to make it
Yes.
happen through hell or high water, through brick walls, whatever it is. And I think the biggest one was, and I don't usually talk about this, but the biggest one was in 2012 when I was living in Zurich, Switzerland, where I was approached by a really nice guy from Chicago who lived there with his wife, is what he said, who worked for a international company as a CEO, and he was the dependent there, so he was just off all the time. So he would come and we'd hang out and went to his house, and then he got me on Skype with a very well-known politician in America, which everyone on this show would know, and another pretty well-known politician, and they pitched me to be a senator in America, in Illinois. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like, why? And they're like, you're the poster boy. You're a poster boy. You have a Bronze Star. You fought in combat. You're big. You're, whatever, the whole works. And I said, but there's one problem. I'm Republican, right? And you guys are Democrats. Like, it doesn't matter. And that was the first alarm bell. And I said, okay, let me go along and see what happens. Well, long story short, after about 3 to 6 months, I forget how long it was, of all of these discussions and plans and everything, I turned it down because I just knew that I would probably be the first senator ever assassinated because I wouldn't be able to keep my mouth shut. So, and so the way they treated me after that and the way that they made my life hell for almost about 10 years after that, I knew right then it's all about integrity. It isn't about title. It isn't about position. They're all disposable, expendable, replaceable. Integrity isn't. When you have integrity, it doesn't matter what happens to you in business life or politics, whatever. When your integrity is intact, you will always stand like an ace. And that was when it first started. And then it's a difficult life because when you have integrity, you have to turn things down that you need. Like I had an offer for $300,000. I turned it down. I needed that $300,000, but I turned it down because it was way out of line, way out of integrity. I would have had to done things that I didn't want to do, or at least ignore things that I didn't want to ignore. And so that's the hard part about it. But there's nothing more sacred than your own integrity. And leadership is all about self-leadership. How you lead yourself is how you lead everybody else. If you're hard on yourself, you'll be hard on them. If you lie to yourself, you lie to them. It's as simple as that. You are the mirror. They are the mirror to you.
Mm-hmm. How did your military experience fundamentally alter the way you think about responsibility?
Well, the military, it teaches you die trying. That's pretty much it, right? So you die trying to complete the mission, and so that's always stuck with me, except for the dying part. So I think that's the do or die kind of attitude that's stuck with me. That I'm able to, look, I've started join tab.us, Take America Back. And everyone thought I was nuts. Like, who are you? What? Now it's grown to a considerable size, and it's got considerable influence. We got the 5 books plus 2 more that are not for sale, but only for those who get into local seats. That's just me. That's literally just me and an IT guy, right? People say, how can you have 300 million views and over 1 million followers? Just you. I don't boost posts. I don't do ads. I don't do none of that stuff. No marketing. It's just truth and integrity. The right people are attracted to that. The wrong people too, because the wrong people will try to take you down all the time. I get haters, but if you don't have any haters, you're probably doing something wrong anyway. So, I think the military gave me that can-do attitude that you just don't stop no matter what. Period, and that's it. Like it doesn't come into your mind, right? It doesn't come into your mind that you can't do something. Like, I want to do this. Okay, let's go do it. Simple as that. There's no, well, let's assess and let's look at the risks and do a SWOT analysis and Porter's 5 forces and all this kind of stuff. Like, no, go.
Was there a moment that you realized conventional leadership models were insufficient for the world?
Yeah, when I couldn't explain to people in front of me why it is that we had to do the things the way we had to do them. And for me, it was never enough because they told us to, because that's what's in the doctrine, because that's what's in the SOP or whatever. That was never enough. That wasn't an explanation for me. And so I started breaking it down, and I would go into my, I turned around quite a few businesses, over 100 businesses in my time. In 10 countries I've lived as well. And after a while, I started going into these businesses. First thing I do is I call everybody together in the office, and I'd be like, look, from now on, this is a negative free zone. Anything you say in this office has to be positive. You either reframe it or you get out of the office. Right. So that was the first disruption that I did. And that forced people to think differently. Instead of saying the boss said do it this way, or I got to do it this way because I'm in charge. Like, none of that stuff flew. So we started a culture of defining what it actually means and why we were doing it the way we were doing it. And that came to changes within the leadership structure and the way we did things in the SOPs that made the company unstoppable. Right? When you empower people to realize who they are, to find their true identity, to accomplish things that they never thought they could accomplish themselves, when you're the person that helps them do that, you have a loyal team, let me tell you. And a true leader doesn't have to turn around and see if anybody's following, because they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why did you choose to build a doctrine then, rather than just simply another leadership book?
Well, I have one leadership book, which is sort of a leadership book. It's called Unleash Your Humble Alpha. And that was basically the story of my life with the lessons inside of it about leadership and how I applied them to leadership. And as you know, my wife's Ukrainian, and when the Ukrainian war started, it was bothering me because I was a soldier. First thing I wanted to do is I wanted to volunteer, because underdog Ukraine against big bad Russia. It didn't take long for me to realize that was all a farce. And it was a game they were playing, a narrative they were rolling. And I saw the corruption, and we saw Doge, and we saw all this corruption we saw in Dearborn, Michigan, and all that kind of stuff. And I said, man, there's no way that we can stop this by electing a new president, a new senator, a new congressman. It's not going to stop, because the entire infrastructure is held together by everyone underneath them, starting at your local governments, the administrators, the NGO workers, all these people. They'll close an ear, close an eye. Look, I'm just pushing the button. I'm not approving it. I'm just signing the checks and sending the data. I'm not, it's not me. And then of course, the reason I talk a lot about international politics is because it's well covered. And when you have something that's well covered from different angles, you can look at that and you can start noticing patterns and fractals and loops that no matter which country it's in, it happens. When I talk about a city council in Dearborn, Michigan, hardly anyone's going to listen, because it's boring. It's in city council. Who cares? It doesn't affect me. For some reason, people think, the war in Iran affects them besides prices, but affects them personally. So they'll get outraged about that. So I talk about global geopolitics in order to, recognize to create the pattern recognition. So when you go back to your local seats, that you can see Oh man, I've seen this pattern in Ukraine. I've seen it in Iran. I've seen it in Africa. I've seen it in China. I've seen it in Taiwan. And so that's sort of the approach I've taken. You take the global view and you break it down and you bring it into the local. But I decided to create the doctrine because I realized we're one of the last countries on the planet that have the opportunity to take our country back from the local level, starting upwards. And now, if I tell you we have over 100,000 empty precinct seats in America and another 1 to 200,000 empty local political seats, and 70% of all local seats run uncontested, meaning there's only one person running. That right there is a recipe for success. We have 31,444 counties in America, right? If we had 10 people per county, it's 31,444 people out of all of America. That's 1 in 8,000 adults, or 1/100th of 1% of every American. We can take America back. That's the math, 31,444 people. And I truly believe we can do that. And I said, all right, let's do it. But their first questions were how, what do I do? What do I say? How do I do it? So the first book, Citizen, Servant, Leader, that's about the identity of a servant leader, right?
Yes.
You're the citizen of the United States for the Republic, why we do it, what we're about, all this kind of stuff. Second one was the biggest problem is weaponized debt. How do you get out of debt? Because when you have debt, they hold it over your head. You won't step out of line. You won't stand up. You won't push back because you might lose everything. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So got a book on how to get legally out of debt. Third book, of course, also very important: health, wellness, and resilience. Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy soul, right? And you have to be healthy in order to fight the good fight. And of course, the fourth one is information warfare, which is all about how to recognize and defend yourself, your family, and the republic from propaganda. And the fifth book just came out 2 days ago. It's called Incorruptible, and that's the title's obvious what that's about. And now in these books are all stories that I lived through to give you a true example of what corruption looks like, what someone's trying to blackmail you looks like, what losing looks like, what winning looks like, how, I'm the co-founder of the Civil Coalition in Germany, which became the AfD in Germany, which is now the largest and most popular party in Germany. Right. So I'm still connected to them. Matter of fact, she's on another podcast right now that I set up for her. And I realized we are so focused as Americans on the upper level, on President Trump, on President Biden, on Senate, on whoever, Lindsey Graham, all these, the flash bangs, I call them, right? Flash bangs. Look over here, look over here, look over here. No one's paying attention to the local governments. And we see that through all the corruption that's coming out, right? So I wrote the doctrine. This is how you become a citizen servant leader. This is how you get debt free. This is how you get fit and back in shape and become resilient in your mind. This is how you can watch out for propaganda and become incorruptible. That's the plan. That's the books. That's the doctrine.
So you walked us through the logic of the the 5 books, which is the doctrine, which I was going to ask. Oh, that's really helpful. Yeah. Why does character have to come first?
Well, because if you're not solidified in your character, who you are, what you're about, and what your purpose in life is, as far as an individual goes, you're completely manipulated. What's the word? Manipulate. You can be manipulated. Yeah. Manipulatable. Mm-hmm. You can be manipulated, and it's the strongest people. They've fallen. Corruption doesn't come for the bad guys. They come for the good guys, because the good guys, they get invited into a room. Look, I can tell you, I got invited into a room. Hey, Steve, man, we need you, man. Come on in. It's great. Hey, meet so-and-so and so-and-so. You're meeting all these people. You're like, wow, it's amazing, right? And then they give you a position, or let me give you some money to start working. And then the next thing you know, you're like a big wig. And you're like, this is amazing. Then they ask you for a favor. And that favor goes against your integrity. And you're like, I don't think I can do that. And they're like, what do you mean? Look what you have. Look what we gave you. What do you mean you can't do it? That's how good people turn bad. It comes with a smile, an invitation, and introductions. That's how corruption starts. The bad guys, they don't walk up to you with a suitcase and go, here's $1 million. Here, that doesn't work that way, unless you're already a criminal and you're doing it for hire. But besides that, no, it doesn't work that way.
It's more subtle. And, you mentioned your videos earlier. So one of them was about narrative. So I'm interested in that one as well. Some other things too. But you argue that narrative is now a weapon. Why do most people fail to see that?
Because it supports their belief system that they've held onto for so long. We've been indoctrinated over the last 50 years. What's good, what's bad, what's right, what's left, what's up, what's down. And when you grow into that your whole life, your whole childhood, young life and adult life, letting that go is almost impossible if you became that person through that narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people don't even think. You can list off facts, put links to the facts, documents, and they'll completely ignore it and say, no, you're lying, because it would go against everything that they believe, that they've worked for in their life, that they believe that they are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And it would crush them if they're not prepared for it. So it's really, really difficult. It doesn't matter what I say. I get called names. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. I'll get called a name. One day I'm a Zionist. The next day I'm a Jew. The next day I'm a Nazi. The next day I'm a Putinist. The next day I'm, a EU shill. It's always something different, because everyone has their narrative. The 1 in 3 Americans know we're getting messed with. 1 in 3, only 1 in 3. And it should be more than that, because for me, it's obvious. If anybody can step back out of their emotions and put it this way, anytime you're triggered, whether it's positive or negative, it's manipulation, it's narrative. Narrative is that if you like Trump did a good thing. Yeah. That's you following your narrative. If you hate Trump did a bad thing or a good thing or whatever, didn't do anything, doesn't matter. We hate Trump. Yeah, I hate Trump. That's a narrative. You're following your emotion. You're not following logic, and you're not following the path of custody of whatever that information is. So the chain of custody, where did it come from? Where did it go through? And where did it end up? That chain of custody of all of that information is key for us to understand where something comes from. It's just like, give me an example. People say Putin invaded Russia, or Putin invaded Ukraine. Mm-hmm. That's when the war started. Others will say, well, no, actually it started in 2014 when the Ukrainians were killing the other Ukrainians, the Russian ethnics in Donbass region. And other ones say, no, actually it started back in 1990 when they had to, no, it actually started back. So it depends where your starting point is. Mm-hmm. That chain of custody of that information, where's it start and who's saying it now? Where did they get that information? Is it from here that serves their narrative because Putin bad, right? Or is it from here where NATO bad? You see what I'm saying? It's the same information. It's just shortened. So if we're not aware of that, if we don't even want to, look, I'll give you an example of what I mean by passivity. Let's put it that way. I did a video 2 days ago, and I said, people aren't stepping up. We've placed over 40 people in the past, I guess, 120 days now in local seats of government. Right now in North Dakota, there's 3 mayor seats empty. No one's even running, right? No one cares. And so I did this video 3 days ago, and I said, you know what? I want you to step up. I'm going to give you all 5 books for free per PDF if you write me a message or write me a DM, right? That video, I think it's on 12,000 views just on Instagram. Maybe I got 15 people that wrote. That's what I'm talking about, right? We can't take America back if people don't step up. That's why the math is so important. 31,444 people. That's all we need. 10 people per county in America. That's it. You can do that in a restaurant. Go in a restaurant. Hey, you guys game. Let's go. You know what I mean? It's like it's really that simple. If people realize how simple it is, and then comes the second part that I talked about. Dude, I can't do that. I have bills to pay. I got a mortgage, my kids, and this, that, and the other. It's that debt again. That weaponized debt. Some of these seats are paid. Some of the seats aren't paid. But none of them are well paid. Put it that way, right? But a precinct seat, for instance, which is the highest political position in your county, in your voting district, that's voluntary. You don't get paid, but you can raise money, you can do campaigns, the whole works, right? So you have massive influence where you can wield that influence in order to get what the citizens want. And then other people say, okay, on our website, we have a seat finder. You click on it, find my seat, put in your zip code, and it shows you the vacant seats. People are like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm like, it's real simple. Stick to your integrity and listen to what the citizens say and do it. That's pretty much the job, right? That's it. You don't have to be a politician. You don't have to be an MBA. You don't have to have a doctorate, nothing. Keep your integrity intact. Listen to the people, what they want, and do that. That's it. That's what politicians are there for. They're not there for anything else. They're not there to get rich. They're not there to dictate our world. They're there to do what we want them to do. A representative.
And since the doctrine is comprehensive, and you did mention this earlier too, it's in one of the books too as well. Why is financial independence inseparable from ethical independence?
Well, just like I said, if you're, it doesn't matter who you are. It really doesn't. Even if you're a billionaire, and the IRS comes in and calls you, hey, you owe us, $2 billion in tax, and you're only a billionaire, or whatever, right? And then someone comes to you and offers you, hey, you know what? If I flip this plane right here, this private jet on you just for a couple days, and that'll look like a tax thing, and then you'll be able to write it off, and then you can sell it back to me for $1 and that kind of stuff, right? Is it legal? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But you're now beholden, period. If you're in debt and someone offers you something to get out of that debt and you take it, and most people will, let's face it, I'm either too, I don't know, too ignorant or too thick-headed or something to do it, but I had debt and I turned down money, because I would have had to do something I didn't want to do. And it wasn't even bad. It was just something I didn't want to do. It was against who I was. And that's why it's absolutely inseparable. And that's why when the CIA does like background checks and all that kind of stuff, they look to see if you're in debt or not, because then you are beholden. I mean, if you go to a foreign land, I knew special ops guys in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they had duffel bags full of cash to pay the tribal leaders to get information. They paid them $100 and kept 1,000. You know what I mean? It's like, they had 1,000 for each chief. They gave them 100, kept 900, 100, kept 900. They walked home, $500,000, $250,000. And that's just, well, it was free money. It was a government money. It wasn't free money. It's taxpayers' money. Mm-hmm. And you just stole it. Period. I put my life at risk. There's all kinds of justifications. I put my life at risk. I was over there and I go, yeah, so was I. I didn't get any money for that. Yeah. I got $24 a day extra for danger pay. That was it, legally, right? So there is no reason in my mind that someone would take money to do something that they're not supposed to do, that they know is illegal or at least on the borderline of illegal. But it happens every day. I would say 9.9 people out of 10 will take the money because of the situation. And it's not even their fault if you think about it. It is, but it isn't. Because when you're 16 years old, what happens? What do you get in the mail? Your first credit card. Free money. And there it starts. Next thing you know, every American has $105,000 debt on their back right now to this day. And when you're doing, minimum wage or working 2 jobs, you're stuck there for life. And if someone comes up to you and says, look, I can get you out of this mess. I just need you to do this one thing. Why do you think crime is so high? That's why. That's what if you don't have integrity, you're just, in my eyes, it's really difficult to look at somebody and respect them if they do something purposely to sell out and to, again, I understand why, but I still wouldn't do it. And I was bankrupt. I had a suicide attempt. I was homeless. I never took money. Homeless, I didn't take money.
The timing is great. The last book, and this really has to do with Incorruptible. So how do you become incorruptible?
It's all about the integrity part of it, right? It's all about the integrity. It's about seeing the signs. If someone's super nice to you, inviting you into rooms where you don't belong, right? Or you've never been invited into these rooms before, and you're like, what am I doing here? Or maybe I've made my time now. I finally made it, right? Why is it so easy to get into these rooms? Why are people talking to you all of a sudden? Why are they giving you things? Like, I got a call, and they offered me a project for a couple $100,000 on the first call. I never met them, never interviewed, never even asked them for anything. They reached out to me out of the blue. I didn't even know who they were. And I knew right then, like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing this. And then I found out who they were connected to, and it was obvious that they were trying to get into my world and then influence me. And so I cut that off. I nipped that at the bud. I didn't even meet with them. They wanted to meet in person. I was like, nope, not happening. So once you recognize what these little tricks are that are used, because there's people out there that the CIA uses and other intelligence organizations are called social liaisons. Just a normal guy like me that knows everybody, right? Like someone who's really, really popular in your town and stuff. And they'll have a friend that they introduce you to. And that friend happens to be one of the spooks, if you will, right? When I was living in Berlin, Germany, they tried twice to get me to be that social liaison. And I turned them down twice. One time overtly, one time covertly, they tried. And when I called the guy out covertly, I was like, come on, man, are you kidding me? You think I don't notice what you're doing here? Come on, man, No. I said, where do you live? Above the Saudi Arabian embassy in an apartment building. I'm like, yeah, okay, there you go. some civilian's not going to live above, you know what I mean? Like, it's so obvious. Like, he's like, come on, man. I was like, so when you recognize, again, pattern recognition, that's what these books are. It's all about pattern recognition, especially Incorruptible. What do you see that doesn't fit? If your intuition is telling you something's not right, guess what? It's probably not right. Will you listen, or will you take the money, or will you take the bait, or will you just close your eye one time, or, hey, it's not so bad. Everybody else does it. Everybody else does it. And people tell me all the time, Stephen, look at the most successful people in the world, the richest people in the world. Every single one of them did something criminal. And I said, no, they didn't. Only the ones you hear about did. Because I know people that, as far as I know, and I've talked to them quite deeply and quite detailed, they haven't done anything overtly, openly, or purposefully criminal. And when they did get caught doing something that was wrong, it was usually like a financial thing or a tax thing or something that their tax advisor wasn't, was ill-equipped to advise them on. Yeah. Because people like, you got to be criminal to be a millionaire. Look at Trump and look at Gates and look at all these people, right? Well, if that's what you believe, that's your path. I'm sorry, that's not the same path I'm taking. It just doesn't happen that way. And I'm living proof. You can have integrity and win. Honestly, I've been in every room you can imagine. And all the way from royals to politicians to parliaments to celebrities, you name it, everywhere. And I was always the guy they went to for advisor, to be an advisor. Because I'm like this, not because I have specific knowledge, because I can see through the BS. I can talk through the BS too.
When it comes to leadership books in a world of publishing that's filled with them, you did something which is really brilliant, but really important. So why did you think the multi-book architecture was necessary?
Because most people will sit down, they'll read a book. This is what always bugged me about leadership books, right? Most books, you read it. Let's take, for instance, not really a leadership book, but Think and Grow Rich. Everybody knows it, right?
Yeah.
You need a highlighter and a little tab sticking out of the side of the book to find out the portion that you want to go back to, right? So like, oh man, I remember that one piece. What was that? Oh, I better mark this right now. Next thing you know, you got a book with tabs hanging out the side and colors and everything. I wanted to separate it. This is finances. This is, information warfare, and the Incorruptible and all that kind of stuff. Instead of I wanted to separate it so people, they can study this book. They can carry it with them. It isn't that big, right? It isn't that thick, right? They can study this book. They can read through it. They can carry it with them. And then when they're ready, they go to the next book. Now, in these books, every single book, and at the end of every chapter, you either have statements to go through or you have tasks, right? In order to embed this into your memory, into your SOP, into your daily life. Each book, right, goes through that. So you read it, you do the exercises, and when you feel like you're ready, I'm ready for the next book. Go to the next book. That's why I did it, to separate it. So you don't have to walk around with all these, looking for, plus the book would be that thick. So
what is the citizen servant leadership vision? What is that then? If you could explain to people, what is that?
Well, citizen servant leader is a citizen who understands their responsibility is to the republic. Right? If you end up serving, whether it's you serve directly or you serve under someone who's serving directly as a treasurer, like I had a guy that wrote me, he said, I tried to run and I lost, but I went to the winner and now I'm the treasurer for her. He said, I wanted to serve one way or the other. I wanted to find a way to serve. And again, we only need 31,444 people in America. And being a citizen servant leader is putting your country first, putting the republic first, listening to the citizens, implementing what the citizens want from you, and ensuring that corruption that is rampant across America, across the world, actually, stops on your watch. And people are like, yeah, it's so simple. You say that. There's been people in office for 30 years. Yeah, because no one runs against them. Honestly, let's say, for instance, there's a guy that's in your city council for the last 20 years and never been ousted because he's never had even a run of it. I would get me and 5 friends and be like, hey, let's all run. I'll put all 5 of our names on the ballot. Let's go. Let's run. And all of a sudden, this guy's fighting for and not just standing there going, I'm winning because I'm alone. You know what I mean? Just put their feet to the fire, even if you don't win. It makes him act differently. It makes him stand up. It makes him show his face. It makes show his cards. Right. The same thing going to city council meetings, school board meetings, county commissions, all that stuff. Just show up, stay calm, stay cordial, dress nice, right? Because as soon as you lose your cool, you've lost the conversation. They have a reason to point at you and go like, he's crazy, right? So we got to stay calm, cool, and collected. We got to state our points of fact. We got to put their feet to the fire, ask questions that matter. Not like, why are you doing this? No, you say, on budget, in the budget, on line 6, we're spending $30,000 a month on toilet paper. Where's that going? You know, like those kind of questions, like truth. Like they have to look for it. This is how we hold their feet to the fire. People are like, Steve, I don't have time for that. Dude, one meeting a month for an hour, hour and a half. I think anyone can do that. If you can go to the bar, if you can go to the movies, or whatever, you can do that. Bring your kids.
Well,
Right?
we've talked about all the things that you have, especially the 5 books and Incorruptible, which is just out. So get that, and Tab. So as people hear you, how do they get a hold of you? What do they do? How do they start? How do they reach you?
So go to jointab.us. There you can sign up for the course that's coming out. You can order the books through Amazon or on the website. You can go, it has the links to Amazon. Sign up for the newsletter. We send that out every 2 weeks. And I would say start reading. If you want to support us, please support us financially because we are unbeholden. We don't have any corporate money. We don't have any donors. We don't, any and NGOs or nonprofits or anyone. I've been offered, but again, I turned it down, right? Because this has to be citizen-owned, citizen-led. And that's what this is all about. Once we get set up, we'll have 3,144 chapters and we'll have state chapters. We'll have a media center. The course, like I said, we'll have training in person and virtual once this all gets set up. Because right now, it's been me and an IT guy building this up, and we're at maximum density right now. We need to roll it out. We're actually looking for a larger investor right now, which will be a silent partner that will just allow us to build out the infrastructure and the architecture of this whole thing. But to get started, go to the website, sign up, grab the books, support us if you can, and then go to the seat finder on the top right, find my seat, put in your zip code, look for the vacant seat, click on it, and apply and change your life and change the life of your community.
It's very simple, very straightforward, and we can save the Republic. Stephen,
Amen.
Thank you very, very much for the time and all the effort that you put in. Thank you for your service. I appreciate everything that you've done and taking some time out today for you. Thank you.
Mick, always a pleasure. Always for you, my friend.
Always good to see you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You know, if you want to do something to save this Republic, do what Stephen suggests. It's really simple. I know for myself, I moved to an area and I'm interested in history, and I signed up, and within a year, I was the chair of the Historical Commission, my local township. It's easy, folks. Just go ahead and do it. Thanks for the support of the program, the podcast. That is the publishers of both Burning America and also On Track, Ian Hunter, for all their support. I appreciate you listening. If you like, please subscribe, like, and make sure you're listening to the next great episode. Until next time, it's the Dr. Digital signing off. Take care. Deus Volt.